I'm going to do a very broad overview of logistics for our players. Um, so I'm not doing like a step-by-step how-to on this. I'm just kind of looking at the overview. And there's a lot of stuff. It's very confusing if you just get into the games. What are all these things about and so forth? Well, let's kind of just focus on one thing. So if you're doing frontline logistics, you're taking haulers and you're taking salvage or components when you're making refined materials, and you're taking them to a refinery, turning them into basic materials and explosive powder and refined materials, and then taking it over to a factory to make stuff, or a mass production factory. And then from there, you're turning that stuff into stuff you might store at a depot, or you'll store at a seaport, and then hauling it to the front line. So if you're a hauler in the front line, you will either make stuff at the front line, or you'll have a stockpile that was funded from in your back line, and then you're just bringing it up to the front. If you're in the midline, backline, things like refineries are more numerous and factories are more numerous, so it's easier to create things, and you stockpile stuff in a seaport or storage facility or base, and then you'll either using a freighter or a train take things up to the front and haul it to a seaport or storage facility up here. Just to give you an idea, your standard hauler that is capable of supplying these front bunkers carry 15 crates. Your freighters carry 300 because each shipping container holds 60 and they can hold 5. Trains can do even more, but you tech them a little bit later in the game, maybe a couple weeks into each war. Um, so now I want to talk about the map a little bit. Just give you an idea as how you kind of look at the game and what matters and how you move things from point A to point B. So hold down Shift, and I want you to click on, let's just say, the salvage field, and click again holding Shift. Shows all the salvage fields. And then also add the salvage mine. When you start, you're going to be looking at these and either mining your own salvage or taking it from a salvage mine. The upside of mining the salvage is that you can get things that help us tech, like iron alloys, or iron to make iron alloys, or aluminum for aluminum alloys. But if you want to just get quick salvage, you take what the salvage mine has accumulated. They're usually fueled by somebody. And then what you do is you take them to a refinery. So that's this little thing right here. And you see them pop up. You'll see there's a variety of them scattered here. They're not super close and everywhere. Down here, you'll see they're in every hex. Up here, much less so. And then you turn them into your materials, and then you want to take them to a factory or a mass production factory. So let's see where the factories pop up. Okay, they're scattered. Again, you have one in each hex in the back line, and Wardens have the same thing going on. Mass production factories you usually find only down here. You see if I turn it on and off. They're only in there, they create even more and give you discounts on what you create. And then after you've created everything, you're going to want to haul those crates to a storage facility or a seaport. That would be, here's your seaports popping up, and your storage depot. I said that wrong. Storage depots. Those are for hauling. They have a crane. They can hold large amounts of crates of stuff, and then you take those crates and you move it to a storage facility or depot closer to your front line, but not too close, because you don't want to put everything in here and then the front line moves here and they destroy all your stuff. You want it maybe here, or I don't know, maybe that one, maybe back a little bit. So that's kind of the general concept of backline. And I'm going to add a few things. So you got your component fields, which you can't really access until about a week and a half into the war when you have sledgehammers. We have that now in this war. I forgot which number, I think 117. You have component mines, which is where you get components until you get those. But understand that people tend to hog those things early on until the component fields are available, which are also hogged quite well for those nice upper end stuff. And these other things like sulfur and oil and coal, well, we'll save that for some more deeper dive. The next thing I'll add, oh, by the way, I forgot to include garages. Think of them as factories, but for vehicles. And so you see each of the backline hexes have one of those. And then there are a variety that are scattered through here. Let me kind of click on and off. See, there's one up here, one here, um, and so forth. Um, the other things that you would want as a Logi person are going to be these map posts. And then also throw in these bloom items because that means warden stuff if they get caught on from an observation tower, but you need a radio to see it. I don't have one on, but you would see a little blue mark um, around where observation towers are if, say, partisans, people who go behind the front lines to disrupt their logi are at. And for frontline hauling, you will need that. Backline, not so much. The last couple things I'll point out is that at the beginning of each war, your regiment that you'll be in is going to pick an area to focus upon. They'll pick an area, they usually stake out an area where their base is. Ours is kind of like around right here for this base. And there's other buildings that are more specific that are usually built there. And they'll, we operate out of Terminus a lot, and our main front line is up here. So usually when you're trying to work your Logi efforts, you try to first start with that. Though it's not uncommon to see our members all over the place here. Sometimes things are at a stalemate in a certain area especially, or there's too many people playing in that area, so you can't even get in. So anyhow, the last thing that I would say is one other reason you might want to consider being Logi is that, you'll play and go fight at a front line, and then you'll see like a bunch of tanks are showing up. And those tanks are often, not always, but Logi players that all got a bunch of really high-end stuff brought to the front to use it for some sort of a push. Sometimes knowing the Logi behind the thing and being part of that, you end up getting into being part of tank crews and stuff for the stuff that you developed. The other thing is if you do Logi and you stockpile a base that you prefer in your area, you can just then use it. Like let's say you say, I wish I had a ton of mammons to throw these big old grenades at. You can kind of help tailor your front line. And it's good too if you are a frontline member and your group is in need of something to be able to switch out, respawn at a place where you know your stuff is and drag it up front. So there's upsides to being a little bit of a Logi player along with a frontline player. And that's kind of, I think, the end of my overview. I hope you liked it, and I hope it helps you decide what you like to do. I personally liked, as much as it was kind of annoying, trying to drive my little freighter once in my first freighter run through. Actually, I was from down here, and I dragged it all the way up when we had a front line up here, to right there. It's nice to be able to stock a massive amount of equipment for the players to use. But we all have our own reasons why we like playing.